Yeah, it's amazing. We're about 60 people overall.
60
Each
people.
one is handpicked with just the skill set that they bring, the achievements that they brought in the past, and then the cultural aspects of things as well. In the leadership team, we have Charlie Albright as our chief scientific officer, very accomplished individual from BMS, Editas, etc. Laura Richmond, our chief development officer. She was at University of Penn at the gene therapy program, the executive director there. With me at MedImmune, Arcellx in the middle there. Rami Daud, who coincidentally I went to school with at Wharton, and then we were reunited after about 25 years. Again, very accomplished Lilly, Human Genome Sciences, Auxilium, etc. as well. And then most recently, I will not be able to disclose the name, but we have just hired a chief medical officer. Who will be joining in just about a couple of weeks actually from now. And then Rob May is the last person again for manufacturing with the antibiotics as well.
Well, fantastic. By the time this episode drops, that chief medical officer will likely be known. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, I mean, you highlight the accomplishments of these folks that you put together on the team. What was tell us about the challenge of putting together, scaling up that leadership team, to align expertise with the mission of Affinia. Was it tough?
It's always tough assembling the right team.
Yeah.
I would say recruiting was good. I wouldn't call it tough. But perhaps because of the various companies that I've been at, it's the same diversity in companies that I was at that expanded my network, that also allowed me to approach investors, but also build out the board as well. So between the leadership team and the board, we've had exposure to, I don't know what it is, 20 or 30 companies. So you amplify that with the entire network of 20 or 30 companies. You're just able to speak with people, make a phone call, and then get a really good diverse set of individuals coming into the company, both at the board, the individual, at the leadership, and also deeper into their organization as well. The track record, I would say, that helps significantly. So when I can go in front of folks and say, I've been at Centocor, MedImmune, Intermune, Avexis, and started Affinia, they know these companies are fairy tale companies in biotech. And the number of medications and patient communities that got approved with these drugs is, I will just say, uncanny. You have that many. And it's the same thing for the other people that have the pleasure and the privilege of working with side by side in the management team. So it's been good to be able to recruit people from that perspective. But assembling the team still requires careful thought. And then the other thing that I would also say, after you assemble, getting the right dynamic is also really, really important.
Yeah,
because the entire 60-ish people that are in the company are relying on the leadership teams for making cogent decisions being aligned. And we debate things, really well, very candid dialogues. But when we have made the decision that we want flawless execution, right? So putting a culture together that allows the candid dialogue, but then the aligned decision and the execution is not easy work. I still look back through my journey in SIC. I also led a sales team as well. And being able to corral the forces towards a common goal is an incredible skill set to have, and one that does take time to develop as well, I would say.
Yeah. What were some of the key, it's an important point. I'm curious about some of the sort of key experiences that have contributed to that skill set.
Yeah, and I use the word sales can be sometimes misinterpreted. In biotech, you have to remember that you are still providing the opportunity for a patient or a family to make a medicine choice that will affect their health. Right? So I always call it education. Having gone through the sales experience, you set the right expectations of how you want an individual or an individual team to behave.
Yeah.
The common goal that he or her or that team has, and then to be able to work side by side with that individual and make sure expectations are met and the common goals achieved. Right? That's both the process and what I would say the dynamic that set up. In the world of commercial, that is quite well trained and exhibited. So being able to bring that into the leadership team and beyond the leadership team, right, is training, it's development, it's all those things. And it's also, I use the term followership in a manner in which You have to be able to craft a vision. You have to have people, it's a calling. You have to have them believe in that vision. And then they're jazzed to go and see if we can make a difference in the world to these people that are counting on you, that you have a technology or medicine that can make a difference in their life. So that I think is where magic happens in running a company or running a team or working with people.
So let's talk a little bit about the magic that Affinia is making happen, right? You've got the team, you've got the culture, you're all rowing in the same direction. Take us through some recent progress in terms of the technology and therapeutics that you're working on.
Yeah, it's a momentous year, very transformative year. So over the past many months, developing capsids that get genetic cargo to the right destination. We focused on two tissues, muscle and the central nervous system. In muscle, we focus on skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle. So we have capsids that get to skeletal muscle in all the diseases that are there for skeletal muscles, including Duchenne muscular dystrophy, myotonic dystrophy, and others. And we have a set of capsids that do the same thing for cardiac muscle as well. In the cardiac muscle, there's more and more genes that are being identified that explain why people have certain heart disease. And then this can be heart failure. This can be the heart getting larger, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. This can be arrhythmias. So we are focusing for our initial indication and program, our lead program, as we call it, on a genetic disease of the heart. That gene that is affected is called BAG3. The resulting impact on the patient is they have heart failure. Now, many people have heart failure, but they shouldn't be getting the heart failure in their 20s and 30s. That's what happens to these individuals. The BAG3 gene produces this protein called BAG3, which is key to the heart cells beating. So imagine if the cell only has half the protein, of course, the heart cell cannot beat, and the individual ends up having heart failure. With the capsid and the delivery method that we have, we can easily package in this BAG3 gene. It's full length, it's fully human, one dose, simple IV infusion. And we've shown in animals that the cardiac cell starts beating healthily again. And the cardiac function is restored back to normal. We've scaled up those studies to the higher species, the non-human primate studies, as we call it. And we've transferred that technology to our manufacturing partner, Forge Biologics, and they'll scale it up to the desired scale that it's needed. So this year, we plan on filing an investigational new drug to the agency. We've met with the agency already initially. That filing will happen in the fourth quarter of this year. And this is a disease where our preclinical data shows us that we can actually get efficacy results very quickly. So we hope to come in the first half of next year and to show that what we've seen at the animal studies we can actually show in people.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's fantastic. I mean, you use the word easily. You know, we showed that we could do this easily. It seems like nothing. You even said like nothing comes easy. So how easy really was it?
The jury will be in the clinical results for sure.
Yeah.
We've selected this. I spoke about decision-making and diversity in opinion. I hope that reflects how much debate we put into selecting this indication. The biology of this disease is well borne out with human data. So in humans, people have shown that when BAG3 protein levels in the cells are lower, that cell doesn't beat fast enough, hard enough. In humans, people have shown that when the BAG3 is not functioning properly, the people end up having heart failure. And the difference is very pronounced and very quick. In the animal model that we are using, almost identically mirrors the human disease, from the genetic defect to the molecular design behind it to the exhibition of the loss of cardiac function. And that for that reason, the early death. A quarter of these patients have a heart transplant. Of course, in these animals, they don't do heart transplant, so that the animals end up, virtually dying.
Yeah.
Until we give them this gene therapy, and then, as I mentioned, the cardiac function is lost. Will it be easy? No. Have we done all the things we could to make sure that we have de-risked this program? Absolutely, yes. So I'm super excited about pushing it forward into the clinical trials and showing that what we're seeing in it, and also we see in people. So with the safety measures, of course, take that into the public.
Yeah. What have you found in terms of the investment community's appetite for what Affinia is working on? The gene therapy space is one of those ones that's been subject to, ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys in terms of general investment appetite.
Sure. Gene therapy is not regarded as in favor, as I would call it, in vogue. Again, there is ebb and flow for investor sentiment on these things. I would say there is really good segregation between gene therapies that use conventional capsids and gene therapy companies that are developing new delivery methods like us that are capsids that actually solve the issues with conventional capsids. The last raise that we did was in April 2021. So it's 4 years out since then, which is amazing. That was a Series B.
Yeah.
The reason we've been able to continue the company without doing another fundraising until we do one in the near future has been because we have delivered the capsids through a business development deal that we had with Biotech. And those have been earning the maximum financial milestones that we could have won. So that's been setting the company financially all those points. The receptivity is really good with this indication. There are tens of thousands of patients unfortunately affected in the US alone. It's a disease where there is no specific disease-modifying therapy. Even in our dialogues with the FDA, we believe that the data was received as being very compelling. And our sentiment from the investors so far has been very encouraging that this is exactly the type of indication that they would like to see, where we've shown efficacy, safety, and also in head-to-head studies, differentiation from others might be doing down the line in this disease. So we will go to a place with that. Fundraising, if any CEO tells me, by the way, it is a good market out there for fundraising right now. It is not. I can set the record straight on that.
We're in a place right now where the message is mixed, obviously, right? Like people are putting the shiny stuff out there, but it's not necessarily always really shiny.
Yeah. I will say that things that do help is the data speaks for itself. And our prior track record as a leadership team also speaks for itself. I think where the dialogue does happen is in the 3 to 4 years timeframe ago, there was certainly, unfortunately, a lot of hype. So the valuations were more inflated than they likely should have been in retrospect at the time.
Yeah.
So of course, there will be a reset in just the market as it has been going, unfortunately, for the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. You mentioned your partnership with Forge Biologics. I'm curious about what the plan might look like moving forward. I don't want you to make too strong a forward-looking statement, but let's fast forward and say that those tens of thousands of patients who could benefit from this therapy have the opportunity to benefit from this therapy. Let's just use those words. This is a space where manufacturing and access and distribution have presented challenges historically. How do you feel about that environment and its development between now and that point? Right? Like, do you have reason to believe that there's commercial manufacturing opportunity in a way that is going to create accessibility for patients for therapies like these?
Yeah, really good question. So what I didn't mention earlier is one of the other areas that we spent significant investment in the technical side is also manufacturing. Within our own company on site, we have a process science development lab that goes all the way up to 250 liters. I mentioned to you that one of the individuals we brought into our company, the head of manufacturing, came from Avaxis, where he's done gene therapy manufacturing to a very good level of depth. So the new technology that we have developed, which is a proprietary plasmid design, to get a little bit into the technical depth there, allows us to improve our yields by 10 times and also improve the quality of the product. So we have tech transferred this to Forge Biologics. They have replicated the results. The results are good even in their hands, which is, again, really good science. And the amount of scale that we are using at Forge Biologics, similar to ours, is much smaller than what other companies might have to use if they did not have this proprietary plasmid design. So we are, to give you a really good example, even to go into our phase 1, the first in human trial, we will use only a 50-liter scale. Many companies would use a 250 or a 500-liter scale. So that gives us really high confidence on both the ability to have the capacity to provide access to these patients, but also to manage some of the cost of goods sold as well.
Yeah.
When you take into account a disease such as diabetes, dilated cardiomyopathy, and you consider that about a quarter of them unfortunately require a heart transplant, the health economic argument for a disease like that and the cost on that individual, that family, and overall society and the payer, the budget impact, as they call it, is actually really, really high. A heart transplant is billions of dollars, unfortunately, like not to mention the subsequent cost that comes alongside a heart and immune cells in that individual as well. So again, we when we select these diseases, we're also very conscious of the societal benefit and ensuring that we have both the benefit risk of a gene therapy, but also a strong health economic argument to supporting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. What would be an investor's trepidation around, like, I mean, if you think about it, just, at a baseline level, simply, fundamentally, we're taking a technology that has shown its merit, it's demonstrated its merit. There's the potential to take it out of like ultra rare indications where, as an investor, your benefit, your payback might be limited, into more broad patient populations, broader indications, bigger patient populations. And, to your point, there's a financial equation that's not going to make it, we won't speculate on what the price tag might be, but certainly competitive to, or better than a multi-million-dollar heart transplant. So what's the concern? Like, what would you say is the biggest concern right now?
I would not say the investors have a concern. The receptive is really good for the BAG3 dilated cardiomyopathy program as an exemplary instance of where gene therapy is a really good solution to it, with the capsid such as ours, which gets to literally 100% of heart cells.
Yeah.
Many investors, unfortunately, I'm speaking secondhand from the dialogues with them, not myself, of course, but for many investors, unfortunately, the last few years have not been good.
Yeah.
Especially for the folks that are in the life science focused industry, because the generalists have benefited from higher interest rates and other areas beyond the biotech sector. So for the ones that are focused on the life science area, they find more comfort with clinical programs, the programs that are already in the clinic and where the readout is in the next, say, 6 months.
Right.
In the case of Affinia, the IND is this year and the readout is in the early part of next year, right? So that is part of the exciting part, is that by the time we do the subsequent financing, it is just around the corner. But they're being selective, certainly, for more clinical programs is the main thing.
Sure.
I do believe the way that gene therapy is evolving, I think similar to what biologics went through when I was launching Remicade decades ago. I believe the receptivity and the perception and the evaluation of a gene therapy will become modality agnostic. It's another potential medicine. It's another potential patient community. It's another potential for an investor, the return of investment, right? The fact that it's a gene therapy is perhaps a secondary point, right? And so they will look at the science. They will look both in terms of the human biology for the disease and then the preclinical results that have been generated by the company for that particular disease, the dialogues with the agency, the FDA, and then make a decision on whether that is something that fits into their strategic fund that they are putting money that they're deploying for.
Yeah, interesting. What's been on your agenda here this week?
So I'd say about a good half meetings are business development meetings, just big companies that like our technology, that also like our programs in pipeline as well, and are curious about what we're willing to license to them. And then the other half are primarily investor meetings. Again, as I mentioned, it's been 4 years since we made the last round. We've been producing some great progress, and we've issued press releases for them. So there's some inbound interest in, would like to hear more about you. When are you doing your next fundraise? Might make sense to speak now.
Yeah.
And then some are with folks such as yourself. So being able to speak, to yourself and just spread the word out and also share the leadership journey has been also amazing as well.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, it's a great story. You've got a great story. The work you guys are doing is appreciated. We'll be paying close attention. So you've got some pretty big inflection points coming up here in the next year or so. So hopefully you'll be willing to come back on the show and there's some data to share and progress to share.
Absolutely.
But I've appreciated the time. I know it's a super busy week, and I'm glad you made some time for the business biotech.
Likewise, thanks for having me over. And